G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Brass on Tap. I'm so happy that you have joined me. And 6-month anniversary, we made it. This is an exciting episode because I remember when the incredible Mike Lovatt, when I contacted him about this channel, and he said, "What a great idea! I would love to be your first guest." And I said, at the end of that stream, I'd love it that in 6 months' time I can get you back and we can see how you're doing. And he said yes to that. We fitted it in as well. We've got quite a few people in here watching, which is great. Brian Davis has already jumped in. He says, "Hey gents, I hope you're doing well. Looking forward to hearing more from Mike. Lovely to see you, Brian." Again, Brian is another one of our guests that I had the pleasure of interviewing, and I hope to interview again because sometimes it's just not enough time in a day. So if you haven't seen the previous episodes, why don't you head over to YouTube, to the Brass on Tap page, and check out all the previous episodes. I had a lovely chat a couple of weeks ago with Georgina Bromelo, or Georgina Jackson is actually her stage name. So go check that out. And there's plenty of more people, including Brian Davis. There's Bobby Shue. There's Ryan Quigley, Chris Castellanos. There's a load of people on there just for your pleasure and to get some inspiration in your practice room. And don't forget also to obviously hit like or dislike if you don't like it, because in the end, the algorithms in these pages are always constantly changing. And if you hit like, then hopefully you'll get similar videos sent to you that you would like to check out. However, we cannot start this stream until we start it. So see you soon. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 23, the 6-month anniversary of Brass on Tap, and thank you very much for all the new supporters and all the following supporters. My next guest, my repeated next guest needs no intro. He is the lead trumpet player for John Wilson Orchestra. You heard him on many a show out there, including the last run of 42nd Street. His sound is so iconic that when I was sat in the movie theater at the end of Endgame, Marvel, I knew exactly who I was listening to, and he's incredible. I'm very lucky to call him a friend. So let's get him on. Mike Lovatt, how you doing?
Thank you. It's great to be here again, and congratulations on the 6 months of doing this show.
Hey,
brilliant.
We made it.
You've had some incredible guests.
Yes, yeah.
Great. And I've tried to choose as many as I can. And, some of the people you've had on here, it's just been great to hear their stories and hear, tips on technique and everything else, just from the world of brass. It's brilliant.
It is, isn't it? And it just shows how generous most people are, especially brass players. I think brass players get a bit of a bad rap. They're like, they don't talk to anyone, and it's like, yeah, we do. But anyway, so yeah, exactly. So I had you on back in October. Yeah. Things are slowly coming back to normal over here. I mean, just tell us a little bit about, we'll go into what's been happening, but tell us a little bit what maybe the future might hold. Do you see that light? Are the jobs coming in? Like we're doing a lift over here in the UK at around June the 21st, we hope. So is anything coming in with that?
Yeah, there's a few things that, possibly on the cards. That obviously the West End is going to hopefully come back towards the end of the summer. I was supposed to be doing some gigs with Patricia Ward Kelly, who's the wife of the late Gene Kelly, amazing Gene Kelly. Wow. And she puts on the show which is called the Gene Kelly Legacy. We did it up in Scotland with the Scottish National Orchestra, and it was a great thing. She has some memorabilia there. She talks about his life because she was actually the person that wrote his memoirs, and that's how they met. Mm-hmm. It's a great show. They use footage from the films with Gene's singing voice still on there, and then the live orchestra along with it. It's a bit like some of the films that you can go and see normally at the Albert Hall and places like that. But I did it up in Scotland, and Patricia really loved it. So she asked me if I would join the kind of going around with the conductor and her to some orchestras in Europe but we should have been in London with the London Philharmonic Orchestra. So I actually had an email from her the other day saying that they're hoping to reprogram everything. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
something to look forward to. And I'm just hoping that some other little gigs start to come in.
Yeah.
I've managed to keep going with a few of the sessions in the studios, and I've been doing some sessions at home as well. Some things that have been paid and some things that haven't. But I've tried to make sure that every day I come into my music room here and I do something, whether it's practice, whether it's do a recording, whether it's working as a recording engineer, which is what I've been doing today.
Exactly. I mean, in the end, I mean that you've just nailed it on the head. I think it's having that not even just the word passion. It's having that drive, isn't it, to just every day, no matter what, go into that practice room and do something. So what are some of the things that have kept you going, or what are some of the things that you potentially have done to get your chops back to where you want them to be?
I've been doing up to Christmas from when we last spoke. Seth MacFarlane, who maybe some people know that I've played lead trumpet on his last 5 or 6 albums. He likes what I do, which is really fantastic, and it's great to play with the likes of Peter Erskine on drums and Tom Ranier on piano, Chuck Berghoff, the legendary Chuck Berghoff from. It's great to play with these guys. But yeah, Seth asked me to do some stuff, and I got this message from his musical director, Mr. Joel McNeely, asking if I was okay for recording some tracks at home for his. He was doing a series of duets. Seth was with Liz Gillies. She's an actress, so that some of you might know her. And so, yeah, I started to do some recordings for him. With probably the first session that I did at home was probably about 4 tracks, and then running up to Christmas, we carried on doing them, and he put them out there, and I think they're on Spotify and they're on YouTube. So if anybody wants to look out for them, she's got a fantastic voice, beautiful voice, really, really great voice. Anybody that hasn't heard her, check her out. It's lovely. It's just perfect. It goes so well with Seth. So that's one of the things I've been up to. I'm also still in the throes. It's been the last few months of doing a very exciting project, which I'm hoping is going to launch a new project which I'm doing. It's a brass project. It's not a brass band. It's not a brass ensemble, but it's a brass group. That's all I'm saying at the moment.
Right.
But we're putting together a suite of music from a famous opera, arranged by Colin Skinner, and it's going to be something hopefully very special. It's sounding amazing. I'm now waiting for 4 French horns to join the recording, and I've heard that there's some amazing players doing that. I enlisted the help of Mr. Chris Parks, who's used to be the principal horn of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, incredible French horn player, and he moved out to Sweden a few years back and became the principal horn of the Swedish Radio Symphony Orchestra.
Wow.
So one of his colleagues from that orchestra is joining us. Plus, we've got Sarah Willis from the Berlin Phil, and we've also got the amazing Richard Bissell. What a musician he is. He's going to be joining the horn section as well. So I'm really excited to get them, but at the moment, the horns are not there. So
I mean, that just shows like what incredible friends you have, or fellow musicians. Like being able to pull a band. That's I'm super excited, and you keep teasing us on social media as well. It's like wait for it. Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be great. So honestly, guys out there, if you haven't yet gone to Mike Lovatt's YouTube page, his Facebook page, or Instagram or anything like that, please make sure you go follow, because he's got super exciting stuff coming up all the time, and you don't want to miss this stuff. So yes. So another thing you did at the end of our last video, you were chatting about you were releasing little information about your Kenny Wheeler quartet video.
Absolutely, yeah.
And obviously it hadn't come out then either. You were like, you're sort of going around the circle and didn't hit the button, and it hadn't come out. So we didn't actually get to play it last time. So I wouldn't mind if you're okay with it. Can I please play the first movement of the Kenny Wheeler?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, so do you want to do a bit of background for us, Mike, so people know what's going on?
Yeah, well, there's a little bit of background, especially to the first movement, because about 5 or 6 years ago, I was doing a concert at the Royal Academy of Music where I teach, and I was looking for something to add to the program which we were doing with the brass group. And I knew that the Academy had quite a few of Kenny Wheeler's arrangements, and of course for brass. And so we did this trumpet quartet, well, at least one of the movements. And so I had a score. I only had a score. And I suddenly remembered when we went into lockdown that I'd got this score, and I thought it's great for me to get into my recording and multi-track myself. So that'd be a great thing to do. So I scoured through all my music and I found this, and I started to record. And the writing is unbelievable. The changes and the chords structure and the voicing is just brilliant. It's genius, really. It sounds like there's more than 4 people playing that. I know.
It does.
And it's the writing that does that. But so I started to do this piece, and I don't know about anybody else, but during all the heavy lockdown times, I haven't slept very well. I wake up in the middle of the night and things are going around my head, and I come downstairs and maybe have a cup of Horlicks or something to make me
Yeah.
And I was thinking, hang on, you've been playing off this score. It was a little tiny score, and I to get my glasses on to do it. I was looking at the score and thinking, hang on a minute, you idiot. This score might be in concert pitch. But because it was only for 4 trumpets, I thought, no, surely the score is in B flat pitch. So I immediately the next morning got in touch with Nick Smart, head of jazz at the Academy, because he's like a real Kenny Wheeler aficionado. I said, Nick, is the score for the Kenny Wheeler Trumpet Quartet, is it in concert pitch or is it in B flat pitch? And he said, the score is in concert pitch. So I'd recorded everything a tone too low.
Oh, no.
So, and I'd tweak little bits where, you record one part and actually you discover that when you put other parts to it, that you might need to make, it's a bit like singing in a vocal group, which I used to do a bit of. You might have to play one note slightly sharper, which of course this happens naturally when you're playing with 3 players. But when you're doing it on your own and one at a time, it doesn't happen like that. So you have to go over it and change some of the parts. So anyway, Nick said to me, well, it's all right, and in Logic, you can just change the pitch of it. I said, no, starting again. And then he let me know, of course, there were 2 other movements. So I added to it, and it became this epic thing. And then Derek Lawton, I'm sure you know Derek, an amazing guy, amazing designer, great trumpet player. He helped me to put a video together, and that's what you're going to see now. And I did it as a tribute to my dad, who died just over 12 months ago of COVID. And also, of course, last June, we lost another great friend of mine, even though we never actually met. And I'm talking about Ryan Anthony. And so it was a little tribute to those 2 guys. And of course, ultimately, a tribute to the genius of Kenny Wheeler.
Certainly was. Ladies and gentlemen, this is superb. Please enjoy this. just stunning. I don't know. It doesn't matter how many times I listen to that. I always pick up extra stuff, and it really is great, Mike.
Oh, thanks, Ben. Yeah, like I say, it's a great piece, and it really did me a lot of good. Learning how to get that together, not just in the playing, but also the recording aspect of it as well. And when I did that, I was using a quite basic M audio interface for any geeks out there, and now I've got a nice Universal Audio Apollo interface, which is just fantastic. It's so smooth and everything. But I'm still really proud of the sound of that, despite
Massively.
using, I've got a lovely mic not this one here. I've got actually it's there behind me. This is a Neumann U87, and that's what that was recorded on.
Lovely.
And I got this geeky little screen as well, just to dampen things down. And I put a load of material up in this room as well, and just get it all dampened down.
I mean, this is it's the way we've sort of gone, isn't it? This past year, and it has been a massive learning curve for a lot of people out there, especially guys who want to continue making music. Brian Davis came on, and it goes, wow, how did I miss the Kenny Wheeler project? It sounds fantastic, Mike. Brian, you obviously didn't check out the first episode of Brass on Tap. But no,
thanks, Brian. Anyway, that's great.
Yeah, honestly, Brian, there's 2 more movements to that as well. And everyone else, there's 2 more movements to that. Please go to Mike Lovatt's YouTube and check them out, because it is stunning and worth a watch. And I listened to it multiple times. So, but anyway,
you need a good set of lungs to play that.
Yes, you do. So just before we played the video, you said, like you dealt with in the heavy times of lockdown, you weren't sleeping. There was people out there, there's people all across the world that have suffered with the mental side of this, the chop side. So have you got any tips for people out there who are sort of, they have those days, like we all do as brass players, where we pick it up and it just doesn't work. And I mean, we always, something we do promote on this channel, which you started on the first episode, which is sometimes it doesn't work, just put it down and walk away. But is there anything else that you do yourself to just bring yourself out of that hole and keep moving forward?
I listen to music. I listen to other bits of music, and it not necessarily trumpet playing. I listen to singers. I mean, yes. I'm into the swing era. I'm into Frank Sinatra, even though I've listened to his stuff, thousands of times probably. I'm still into that, and I'm still in awe of what goes on with his singing, and of course Ella Fitzgerald as well. So that era is a big, massive part of my listening. But I listen to opera singers. I listen to Jessie Norman, who was somebody I was very lucky and fortunate to work with and learn really about playing from her. I think there's so much to be learned from the human voice, because really it doesn't matter what instrument you play. What we're really trying to do is emulate somebody's voice, or hopefully it's our own voice. But that's what we're trying to do, and it doesn't matter whether you're playing jazz or you're playing classical music or whatever. That's what it's about. That's what music is about. You're trying to get that voice to communicate with the listeners and to also maybe touch them as well. And so listening to music is my first inspiration. I'm very lucky, without sounding too kind of corny, I'm very lucky to be supported by my wonderful wife, who was always like, yeah, Mike, go on, you go and do that, you can do that.
Yeah.
I think from an early age, because of I won't tell the story again because people have probably heard it hundreds of times, but I did have a reasonably bad accident, which of course lacerated my top lip off, basically. And I lost loads of teeth in the bottom when I was 15. And from that moment onwards, I was determined that I would do it again. And I don't think that determination has ever left me. A couple of weeks ago, we were really sad to learn of the passing of one of the great lead trumpet players this country's ever had. And I talk about Nigel Carter, who, of course, was lead trumpet with the BBC Big Band, the BBC Radio Orchestra, for like 30 years or something. And Nigel, I was on trial with that band back when it was still a BBC outfit. Back in when the BBC had a big band, which is, in Germany they have the WDR band. I don't want to start on all this, but
no, let's not.
It really bugs me that actually we've got a fantastic band here, but the BBC are not interested. But there you go, that's the BBC. But anyway, Nigel, when I was doing some recordings when they were at Maida Vale, and I was on trial for the job, he used to go to me, Mike, do you want to play that? Do you play this lead? I never ever said, actually, no, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. Now, in here, I was thinking, oh, I might not be able to do this, but I've always put my head on the chopping block, and I've gone, no, you can do it. Why can't you do it? Just play, And if you start off with that kind of thought process, that when you pick up the instrument, that you're in charge of it, that you can do it, it's amazing what it can do to your chops, to your musicianship, to I'm not saying you've got to be like, oh, listen to me, and you elbows player and you overblow and you absolutely get on top of everything. You play in an orchestra and blast everybody out of the way. That's not what it's about, of course. But it's having that actual, yes, I can do this. And I try and maintain that. And I think that's what keeps me going. Now, one day, there might be a day, it could be tomorrow, where I pick it up and it's really, really terrible. And I'll carry on trying, but there might be a day when that kind of psych doesn't work.
Yeah.
Maybe something physical, maybe my teeth will fall out. I don't know. But you just got to get on it and enjoy it. And that's what it, never lose sight of the fact. Why did you start playing the instrument? Because you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You can stop thinking, oh yeah, where does my tongue go? How much air do I need to use? Do I need to compress like this? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? Oh, where's my mouth? Oh, what mouthpiece should I play on? All these things that you can start getting involved with, but just try and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And listen to what you're doing.
Does that with that mentality, have you ever suffered from any, say, stage fright, anxiety? Because a couple of our viewers have come on.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, if you spoke to my wife, I think she's rather glad now that the John Wilson Orchestra is sort of not happening, and of course we won't be at the proms again this year, and maybe not again in the future. But when we used to do those proms, and we did them for 10 years, and the first one was such a success that every year, in the back of my mind, it's like everybody's just expecting it to get better and better and better. And in some ways it did. But for me, that was a real pressure, because right from the very first show in 2009, I think my head was on the chopping block. There was loads of solos to do. I was leading the brass section, and John really wanted me to play lead trumpet on everything, because he said, if you change the lead trumpet, the whole sound of the orchestra or the band changes. There's a certain element of truth in that. So there I was doing everything. And before every year, John used to say, this is what we're going to do this year. He might send some music, he might not, depending on how late he was in transcribing or the people he got to transcribe music. And so I didn't actually get it much before the rehearsals, and we didn't have much rehearsal either. But Anne she used to get geared up for like, oh yeah, the prom's coming up, Mike's going to be like this. And sure enough it was. But what I made sure was that once I got on the stage, and there's 5,000 people in the Albert Hall, and I don't know how many others on the television watching at home, John walks on the stage, and at that point I used to go to the lads either side of me, Pat White, genius Pat White, and Andy Gathercole, Jim Lynch, wonderful trumpets. I used to just go, well, there's no turning back now, fellas. You just get on with it. And at that point, you'd still be like this, but you're there, and that's it. You just got to do it. And you just got to concentrate on what's in front of you, and don't even start peeking over the page. Because you can never remember, when you haven't done much rehearsal, you can't remember what's coming up next, which is a good thing. So I mean definitely
that mentality is what I call the Haydn trumpet concerto mentality. Everyone from the beginning thinks about the E flat, and it's like, why are you thinking about that E flat? You got all this stuff to play before you get to that E flat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's amazing to hear that you, because I've been to multiple John Wilson orchestras, and wow, that is a blow.
Yeah.
Those shows they're heavy. They're heavy
Yeah.
blows. You know, and one of my favorite stuff you did. Well, it must have been probably 8-9 years ago now when you played the Sandpiper.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Stunning, it really is. Yeah, it's
And
beautiful.
the thing about doing that orchestra as well was you one moment you're playing sort of heavy duty lead trumpet stuff. The next moment you're playing a delicate little solo. And on that, when we recorded that Sandpiper, it was a Christmas show. But again, I was playing all the lead trumpets, and it was trumpet parts, and it was a real heavy duty blow. There was so much to do, and it was all full on. And we did a run through in the afternoon for the cameras, and John wanted us to play out. He said, he didn't say, okay, take it easy for tonight. Play it out. So you do. And then you walk down the front, you have to play a really controlled, delicate solo. So, but that, nobody asked me to learn to play the trumpet.
Fair one. Yeah. I mean, that's why we get paid to do what we do, isn't it? Like, especially yourself. And I mean, you must feel, there must be that in the back of your mind, I am Mike Lovatt. People come to hear me, like someone said, when they walk in a recording studio and Derek Watkins was sat there, they'd go, oh, this is going to be a good day. Do you know what I mean? Like you must feel a little bit of that pressure going on as well when you sit in a chair like that.
Yeah, there is a pressure, because actually anything you do really, because look how many amazing players there are.
Yeah.
We have,
yeah,
it's just like anybody could be there. It just happens that I'm there. And so I just think, right, you just got to do your best, and you can't do any better than that, really.
Correct. Yeah, completely.
At that point, the nerves hopefully then just go down a bit, but keeping that sort of, yeah, come on, lads.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've just nailed it right there with what you just said. Just, you're all in it together. You're all there. Let's just laying it down. So why? Yeah, exactly, massively. So how about we hear you laying it down on the Sinatra proms that happened in 2015?
That's right. Yeah.
This is John Wilson Orchestra. Everyone, enjoy this. Yeah. I honestly, I can't wait for live shows to come back. Just listen to that.
Yeah.
It's
That was a great night, actually.
I bet it was.
And 2 weeks after that, I think it was maybe less than 2 weeks, we did 2 proms that year, because it was a centenary, not only of Frank Sinatra, but also the West Side Story. Who wrote West Side Story? My brain.
Oh, you just set my brain down.
Leonard Bernstein.
Yeah, Bernstein. Yeah.
So we did a Bernstein prom, and that was really orchestral and completely different. And I can say this. I think I can, but I don't think there's another brass section in the world. I'm not talking about me, but I'm talking about the trombones and everything that can actually do that, and then a week later play like a symphonic brass section. And people listen with their eyes these days, but if you shut your eyes, I don't think you really could tell that.
No.
And there's one point in that last number, actually, that the band really starts to get going. And when a band really gets going, it almost feels, as you're playing, it almost feels as though you're out of control of what's going on. and that moment happened, and there's like a build up, that bit. And I don't know whether you can hear on the recording, Matt Skelton, who's the wonderful drummer that's playing on there, he actually shouts out, he goes, whoa, like that as we're playing, and you can hear it on the mics, you can hear it. And that was a great night. And of course we had Seth MacFarlane singing. That was Jamie Parker singing with us there, but Seth sang as well. And also we had wonderful Claire Martin as well. She did some numbers. She did a duet with Seth, and I think she sang The Folks That Live on the Hill as well. I think that might be on YouTube if anybody's interested. Beautifully sung by Claire.
I mean, you must, nothing replaces sitting in a section like that, or sitting in a studio like with that live music around you. And that must be something for yourself, who does that day in, day out, really miss.
Yeah, I do. I miss those guys. We played together. I know a lot of people say this, you get used to the people you play next to, but I played next to Pat and Andy and Jim for a long time, and we we started with John. Really, that was the section that started and stayed for quite a long time, and it was. We never used to have to say, "Oh, you're going to play that short. You're going to play that long. You're going to play that through." It's just we just did it, and there was great respect because every single one of those guys is a fantastic trumpet player, and they could sit where I sit, you know, and that's it. And I think that's why it worked as well.
It's a massive mutual respect as well, and you can see that when you're watching it. You know, especially at home, if you're watching at home, and you see each other and how you react with each other. And I mean, you had the pleasure of doing the run of 42nd Street with Jim Lynch as well, didn't you?
With Jim, and to start off Andy Greenwood as well, brilliant.
Yeah, I mean that section was sublime. The little snippet videos you put up were, you know, just, I mean, I went and saw the show a couple of times. It was great. It was a great section, and hopefully that, you know, that show makes an appearance at some point down the line, and hopefully you'll be back there doing it again.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
That's great. So, just talking a little bit about the style of John Wilson Orchestra. I had a little chat with you before we went on there, and it's something that's always intrigued me, and it's knowing the correct way. By the way, everyone, this is me asking Mike questions, but you know the stream's for you guys as well. So everyone in here, make sure you get your questions into Mike while we got him. All right. So, Mike, for me, what's your take when it comes to knowing what style to do? Say you walk into a studio or you sit into an orchestra, you know, you've been booked for a random proms, could be LSO, whatever it is, you sit down, you're like, okay, this is from this era. I mean, it could be down to vibrato, you know, length of notes, you know, like, could you tell us a bit of background about, I mean, obviously it's got a lot to do with listening, but just what your process is in this moment.
Okay, well, obviously you've just hit the nail on the head. Yeah, past listening that I've done, and this is something I've told people before, but when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, I used to spend hours in my bedroom at home with my record collection, which was getting larger all the time, and also my dad's record collection, which was vast and all different styles of music. And I used to put these records on. I used to play along. And it's amazing, especially when you're that age as well, because I think what happens is you've got like this kind of little library somewhere in here, and all these sounds go in and they sort of stay with you. And then as you go through life and you start to be, you know, I became a professional musician, you start to play with other players, hopefully players that are better than you and are more experienced than you. You then start to hear loads of other sounds and playing different styles of music. So you start to pick up on those as well. So that's really the beginning of it. But to answer your question properly, and what happens when I turn up and I look at some music, what I normally do is, you know, I look at the title. That might give a bit of a clue. If it's for a film, you might find out when the film was, you know, when it was set. That might have something to do with it. Who's written the music, another thing. But above all, and this is something that I learned from Derek Watkins, when you open the music, you're on it straight away. So everybody's getting ready and people are still walking in the studio, but if the music's there, you're scanning it, you're going through it, you're singing it in your head, because that's what you've got to do. You've got to know what you're going to play, especially if you're playing first trumpet, because you're going to dictate the style, unless this person on the box, the person conducting or the musical director, says, actually, trumpets, can you do this? Unless you're working with Maurice Murphy, and I always remember fantastic time with Maurice Murphy, and he would, what you said earlier about you walk into the studio and Derek Watkins is there, you know everything's going to be all right. It's the same when Maurice was there, of course. And I walked in to do something, you know, and we started to record, and Maurice was just his genius self, like nobody else. And the conductor said something like, "Oh, trumpets, can you do whatever it was, play quieter or play this shorter?" Maurice just went, "Play it the same, chaps." Like that, just slightly under his breath. We played it the same, and of course the conductor and the control room, they go, "Yeah, trumpets, that's wonderful." So there's also that kind of thing as well. You have to have that kind of persona so that you know what you're doing, and then you can sort of play it your way. But I'll sing it through, and I'll try and think, now is that that phrase there, it sounds like this. It sounds like the Burt Camford record I was playing along with when I was 12. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's that process that goes on in my head, and then you go into that library and you try and extract that sound, and then play it like that. Now, the danger of doing that kind of thing and being trying to play in different styles is it's very easy that if you're successful, it's very easy to be pigeonholed. Now, okay, I always wanted to play in an orchestra like the John Wilson Orchestra. That was my passion, really, and that kind of sound. I was always into the Hollywood sound from the 50s. That was it for me. Ewan Rasey, as you know, everybody knows that I'm a massive Ewan Rasey fan, and that's my benchmark, really. And he was, of course, probably the greatest all-round trumpet player there's ever been, and certainly the most recorded. But that's the kind of thing that really gets me right. Okay, right. I'm going to play like that. I'm going to play in that style because that's what that is. But if you try and play in other styles, like I said, you can get pigeonholed, and that happens to some people. I've always tried to be as versatile as possible. Sometimes quite successfully, sometimes not. But I don't think anybody would say, call me up to do like a kind of Jerry Hay type horn section. But I've done that kind of work, but people, and I'll tune in. I grew up listening to Al Jarreau and that was the pop music of my youth.
Yeah.
So I listened to listen to Jerry Hay and Gary Grant and Bill Reichenbach and all these guys. They're the benchmark of that, like Ewan Rasey is to the other thing. So you've got to try and tune into the music that you're looking at before you start playing it, and try and, what sound is that? Okay, then try and recreate it. But listening is so important because people, like I said earlier, people use their eyes these days. They don't listen. And, the other day, apparently, like YouTube, for instance, if you put that Kenny Wheeler trumpet quartet, right, its entirety, I'm not sure, is it about 12, 15 minutes or something like that?
I think it's about around 10, around 10, 11 minutes, yeah.
Around 10, 11 minutes. After about 30 seconds to a minute, most people have switched it on.
Or something. Oh, yeah. Well, they chuck a big advert or something in the middle of it, yeah.
Or they scroll through to the end, and that's what happens. But listen. Always listen and try and log the sound away. Not necessarily the Kenny Wheeler trumpet quartet, but the sound of something that you're drawn to. It might one day, when you're playing something that you've never played before, it might come into its own, and you'll go, okay, that's it. That's the vibrato. I mean, you mentioned the Avengers Endgame, and I got this call, and they said, okay, this is a big film. They don't always say what the title of the film's going to be, and they said, it's like a Harry James thing. So can you do that kind of thing? So I remember it was January, and it was the first thing I'd done after Christmas. My chops were a bit, but I turned up, and thankfully there were all those guys that we all know and love. Pat Wyatt was there, and like Mark Nightingale and Andy Wood and people like that on trombones, and it was all friendly faces. So I just sat in the middle of Abbey Road 2 and started trying to play like Harry James. Now, nobody can play like Harry James. Nobody. Harry James is Harry James. But you can try and get a flavour of that. So, how do you do that? You mentioned vibrato. Well, vibrato is the predominant sound of the vibrato is the note. And that's what we have to remember. Why did vibrato get used by especially the sort of swing era? Because there weren't really microphones amplifying everything. So they used it as a device to project a resonator. And vibrato is the change in resonance on the tone. So, a really good opera singer doesn't go like this. They change the resonance in the voice. They go to head voice or a chest voice or whatever it is to change that resonance. Now, we've got a resonator, and it's our bodies. I mentioned Jessie Norman. Her pianist was a guy called Mark Markham, and he's an incredible classical piano player. he played the piano on this rehearsal that we were doing, and he played some Poulenc because I'm a massive Poulenc fan. I don't know whether you know Poulenc's music, but anybody,
Not much, no.
it's beautiful. For me, he's like the French Gershwin. It's just wonderful
Wow,
music.
need to check him out.
Anyway, he was playing this piece on the piano, this Poulenc piece, and it finished with this chord. And he just had his foot on the sustain pedal with the chord at the end, letting it sustain on. And it suddenly like had a crescendo to it. It got louder. And I said to him, Mark, is it my imagination or did that just like crescendo? And he said, oh, yes, that's what I was doing. I said, what do you mean that's what you're doing? You press the key, you press the keys down, the hammer had hit the string and that's it, surely. He said, no, I'm using the resonance. Said, how would you do that on the piano? He said, well, my fingers are touching the keys. They're actually vibrating as well. The whole piano's vibrating. He said, and I'm picking that up in my body and then feeling it and then sending some back like a sympathetic vibration. He said, and that does a crescendo. I said, I don't believe you. And he did it again. And it was amazing.
Wow.
So the resonance in sound is so, so important. And I do have my trumpet here.
Yeah,
so
please demo.
I can kind of, I don't know what the sound will be like pointing away from the mic, but if I just play a G. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just change. That's the first note of the day, by the way. That's but that's what happens when you record string quartets.
It's a good note.
Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that note and I'm going to squash the sort of resonance of it using my kind of oral cavity. I don't know if that's coming across, but I'm going from like a more mellow to a brighter sound. The pitch is not changing, but if you speed that up, then you start to get vibrato. But of course, that doesn't give you Harry James. You know, that starts to be, if you speed that up, that's going to sound like a brass band vibrato, that kind of sound, that sweet sound, which is kind of what you do if you're playing a Ewan Raisey type thing, you know, American in Paris or something like that. And with the Harry James thing, you've got to make that bigger difference between the resonance and the non-resonance in order to get that sound. So in order to go, so I'm really changing the resonance of groove, so you get that you get that kind of sound going on, which, you know, if you played in I don't know, in a symphony orchestra like that, people would turn around and look at you in a very strange way, I'm sure. So that's where your musicianship comes in, to use whatever you need to use sound wise for what you're playing in, and that's what I just try and do. I try and get it right, and like I said, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. I don't know whether that was a very good demonstration of vibrato.
I think it was. Now, I mean, something I've been asked a few times before as well is, how do you vibrato? So there's obviously multiple ways. People do lips going in and out. People do lips going out. Some people just do bottom jaw movement. Some people, I've even heard of someone doing a back tongue thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many different ways. What would be your recommendation for people to start doing?
I tend to use a combination of the jaw and the tongue. So I'm changing the oral cavity shape and size to change that resonance. And I'm thinking head, no head, head, no head. So the brighter bit, the sound, I'm feeling right up here. So also, if I'm playing and I want to play something, okay, I'm pushing a tiny bit more air down, but actually I'm changing the resonance more than crescendoing through that. But people will say, oh, that's loud, you're playing louder. No, I'm not. I'm just making it more resonant. I'm making it ring more. And a little tip for that is tuning slides. Sometimes, it depends on what mouthpiece you've got. If you've got a really deep mouthpiece, you're going to have the tuning slide maybe a bit further in than you would if you had a shallow mouthpiece. But tuning slides on most modern B-flat trumpets are more or less designed lengthwise to have the same amount of brass showing at this end. Now, some people turn up for a trumpet lesson and the slide's almost in. And I said, why have you got your slide like that? And they said, well, because if it's out, I'm flat. Okay. And so I start teaching them about air and the speed of air and making the note resonate. And of course, if I push my slide all the way in, I can still play a G that's kind of, I know we've got no pitch reference here, but it's kind of, it's in the middle. But I will never be able to play a beautiful, steady, pure note with my slide pushed in like that, because I'm fighting the resonance that we have here in the trumpet. And, we've all got, nice instruments, whether it's a Yamaha or a Bach or whatever it is. These instruments are designed to resonate at an optimum length. And that's what we've got to work with. If we're working against that, we're not going to get that sound. We're not going to get it. So a little tip from me would be learn to get the air at the right speed for the note and the resonance in your body. And then you don't need to push your tuning slide in.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Definitely, yeah. Everyone out there, make sure I'm definitely going to be going and checking myself out. Anyway.
And the other thing that I learned from a fantastic trumpet player who's in the BBC Symphony Orchestra called Joe Atkins, and Joe used to come into My Fair Lady when I did that, and he used to I played second trumpet in that show, and Pat White was on first trumpet, and Joey used to come in and det for Pat, and he played the show beautifully. It was really fantastic. And there was a little pearly, quiet little bit in that show, and I think it started on an A above the stave. And when we play notes like that quietly, they tend to, without us wanting them to, they tend to start creeping up in pitch. They're going sharper and sharper. And of course, you're trying to, I don't like using this word, but you're trying to lip it down. You're trying to get the note down. Okay. But he gave me a little tip. He said, when you do something like that, pull your slide out more than usual. He said, because it helps take a bit of that, it's not resonating as much, and it'll help the pitch. And then you can creep in quietly. So that's another one for you to try if you
definitely.
Don't try it when you're playing at Windsor or something like that.
Yeah. After marching up a hill, yeah, that could be. But no, that's actually really intelligent trumpet playing, and it's that kind of stuff that like we always say, in our job, it's bells and whistles. People see the flair, the pomp, the circ.
Yeah.
But they don't realize how much is going on in the background, how much is like working here, brain constantly ticking. And it's massive. And it's great that, it's not just, the amateurs or the guys who are just starting to play. It's everyone is thinking about this always. There's no quick fix for this. You can't just push a valve down and do it. It's always something we're thinking about. That's incredible. So what kind of stuff are you did you do to build your chops back up, or are you doing at the moment to get them back to, say, show level, or say the phone rings in a movie? Because you had James Bond come in a couple of months ago. A couple of years. Was that before lockdown? It was before lockdown.
It was one of the last things I did before the first lockdown last year. So it was February when we did that, and of course none of us have heard it. We don't know what the wonderful Hans Zimmer has done with us. It could be anything, of course. We might have been even taken off it. It'd be interesting. In fact, I got a fantastic. Somebody sent me a picture, and it was a picture that had been made up, and it was Daniel Craig in his DJ, looking all smart with glamorous women around him and a red carpet behind him, but the face was of like at least an octogenarian. It said, "This is Daniel Craig at the opening night of not Tomorrow Never Dies. What's it called? Die Another Day. Is it called Die? No, Too Hard to Die or something. Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called. Too Late to Die. No Time to Die.
Time to Die. Yeah.
No Time to Die.
Because it's his final one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was just it might be online or something. It's really funny, just like an old man. And there he is.
Have to go check it out. But by the time it actually comes out, we're very much hoping it's going to come out maybe around October this year. I think was the latest they said. It's going to come out the end of this year anyway. So we're crossing the fingers to hear that. But like we were saying before, there's no There's no behind the scenes for that. There's no, oh, this originated from here. You know, the only thing you've got to work on is Hans Zimmer. You know how he
Yeah,
writes. You know, I mean, he wrote Hunt for the Red October, didn't he?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean
yeah,
that's incredible music,
yeah,
you know, and I think Malcolm McNabb was the solo trumpet player on that, and
yeah.
what a haunting sound he created on those
Incredible.
solos. Yeah,
Yeah.
but how do you, so you go, okay, Hans Zimmer is the guy, but what's your mindset when you sit down in that studio and go, right, you know, this is, you know, comes with a reputation being James Bond, you know,
Yeah.
so you know, how did you go about it?
Well, when you think of James Bond movies, of course, there's no getting away from the fact that we all remember Derek. And back in 1996, I think it was, I was doing a TV show with Derek. It was the Des O'Connor show tonight. It was called, it was a chat show, and it was a small band. It was just two trumpets, and I was on with Derek, and we did it every week, and it was great because it was, that time was a time that I really got to know Derek really well, and I got to learn a hell of a lot about playing next to him and his playing, and it was incredible to be there doing that. But he said one of these weeks we were doing, he said, "Oh yeah, we starting the next Bond movie next week," and all I said was, "It must be amazing to do something like that," and I didn't say any more. Anyway, 2 days later, before the days of mobile phones, and or maybe I did have a mobile phone, but I got a call from the contractor, the orchestra contractor, and the message was, Derek Watkins would like you to join him on the Bond movie. Are you free next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it was, the schedule? And so I turned up at Lyndhurst Studios in Hampstead, and there I am, sat next to Derek Watkins, John Barclay, and Steve Sidwell.
What a section.
So there was four trumpets, and I was just there as a bumper. For anybody that doesn't know what a bumper is, it's somebody that gives the top man a bit of a lift when he maybe needs just to take it off his chops, just to get a bit of blood back before he does something really amazing. And so I sat down and I'm thinking, wow, there's all these trombones behind me, and wow, it's just amazing. And there's massive orchestra. And of course, the first thing we did was a motorcycle chase in this film, Tomorrow Never Dies. And it was just a massive section. It was like a 10-minute chase. So the trumpets were at it straight away. And I just turned to Derek and said, "So Derek, what do you want me to do in this?" And he said, "Well, just play everything." I said, "What? Everything? Absolutely. I said, what about when it goes to like double B there?" And he said, "Well, maybe not as when it goes really high like that. But when we actually got to play the big, da da da,
Yeah.
there was all four of us playing, up to Fs and stuff. So it was great to have that as my first Bond experience.
Of course.
And last year, so when did I say it was 1996? And my maths isn't brilliant, but it was so many years.
Wait, 14 years.
Yeah, no, more than that, I think.
Oh, 24 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 96. Wow.
And we sat in the same studio doing a Bond movie, and there I am. And so I thought back to that straight away. And I just thought, right, okay, we've got to do a nod to try and carry on Derek's kind of legacy. So there were bits where we put in the plunger thing, the wah-wah effect, which of course is synonymous with the Bond sound. And that was something that I believe Derek kind of suggested on one of the earlier films.
Wow.
And so you've got to keep that sound going, and a bit of growl in there. And of course, it's a lot of unison as well. There's a lot of unison trumpet going on. There's always that temptation to go, oh, let's put something up the octave. But I don't like doing that unless it really requires it, because otherwise it just becomes something that's like, oh, yeah, the trumpets are up high again. And it doesn't have an effect. Whereas if the trumpets suddenly go high, and they haven't been doing it for a while, it's really exciting. And so you've got to respect the orchestrator as well.
Oh, massively. Yeah.
And obviously Hans Zimmer has a team of people working with him, and I'm really looking forward to hearing it. And I hope that we have been successful in our little nod to Derek, and he's up there maybe thinking, yeah, lads, you know.
I really hope so as well. And
Maybe he's giving it one of his one of his laughs.
his chuckles, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he is, and I don't think the world can. It can come soon enough for the world to hear. I mean, exactly what you said. Like like you don't want to be playing up there all the time because it takes the magic away from playing up there. I remember. I think it was who played on Spectre. Was it Tom Rhys Roberts?
Tom played on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom and John Barclay.
Yeah, magical moment, section, and I remember I was sat there and I sat at the back of the theatre, and it's not a tame score at any sort,
No.
but it's building and building and building, and then all of a sudden this G comes out of nowhere and just far, and you're just like, oh, like it's and that makes it just go whoa, hits you right in the back of the the hairs on the neck, and as you said, there's time and place.
Yeah, I think that was Tom, and I know that they did quite a few takes on that, but Tom nailed it. And actually, just a shout out to Tom. Tom was on the film with me last year, and also Andy Crowley, brilliant trumpet player, and Tom Walsh. And then for a couple of sessions, Tom wasn't able to do it because I think at that point he was doing the Strictly tour or something like that. And so Louis Dowdeswell came in.
That's not a bad replacement, is it? It's definitely, Well, and again, what a section! It must be amazing to have so many incredible musicians to choose from when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, so Mike, you've been working as quite a bit as an educator as well, haven't you? During lockdown.
Yes, I have. Yeah, I as you probably know, I teach at the Royal Academy of Music, and I also hold the Derek Watkins Chair of Trumpet at the Academy. And normally we do, go in and do maybe a concert with a brass group, and I try and with that particular project, I try and be inclusive with both jazz players and classical players. I don't like a divide between jazz and classical players. It's all trumpet playing. And it's all the same. It's just whether you talk with a Staffordshire accent or an Australian accent.
Correct.
And that's all it is. And if you speak with an Australian accent and you're a newscaster in 1950 working for the BBC, you probably wouldn't get away with that. But you would nowadays. But anyway, it's the same with trumpet playing. If you play like a jazz player and you're playing in the London Symphony Orchestra, it's not gonna be right. So yes, how did I get onto this? Just remind me.
So talking about your education stuff that you did with Solihull and the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. Yeah.
So from the academy, normally, like I say, I do stuff there, and I bring people together, and that's been going out further, and I became associate artist to the brass department at the Royal Conservatoire in Scotland. And for the last, 3 years, 2 years ago, I went up there and did a whole week with them coaching. And then we finished the week off with a fantastic brass concert. Last year, of course, that was one of the first things that got pulled for me. Was it supposed to be the beginning of March or middle of March or something? And so this year, John Logan is the head of brass. He said, let's do something online. So we had a whole week where I was sitting at home with Anne making me cups of tea and keeping me going. And John and the students were socially distanced at the conservatoire. And we had a fantastic week. I was on a big screen there and I was zooming into them. And the end of the week, we ended with a recording that eventually will be completely on YouTube. A recording of a small, it's like a mini concert, really. It's going to be streamed on there. And prior to that, I was asked by the Solihull Music Hub by a fantastic guy called Anthony Jones, who does wonderful work up there. And he said, we've got a sort of brass day. Will you come and do an evening like this, as kind of masterclass? And I said, yeah, well, normally when I do something like that, I do the masterclass and then maybe, take the band and then we do a gig. So let's play something. So he came up with the idea of doing Evergreen, which is the Bob Ajeda arrangement that he did for one of your previous guests, the amazing and most fabulous trumpet player, I think. I think probably one of the greatest ever. I was listening to something the other day. The sound that guy makes on the trumpet is just it's the real deal. I
Yes,
don't think
yes, it is.
and of course that's Bobby Shew I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Wonderful guy and an incredible player, as you know. And so I recorded that. They sent me some parts down, and I recorded my solo part here. And so at the end of this night, we'd already done that. It was like all the people that were online doing the masterclass, the people that weren't playing as well, got to a little presentation, which was that. And it's wonderful that we were able to use this technology to keep on doing these things. And I am at the stage of life where I love to actually pass things on. We're only here for a short time in the music business, especially if you play the trumpet, and it's so important. I have to pass on what I learned from Derek Watkins, what I learned from Kenny Baker, what I learned from all the people that I've been from Maurice Murphy, all the people I've been lucky enough to play alongside. I've got to pass that on. It's not for me, it's for everybody. And that's my attitude.
I think that's amazing. I mean, as you know, like you've just hit a nail on the head. Like if you sit there and listen to you play, and obviously in different settings, I could have my eyes closed and I could probably name the people that you're not imitating because it's still you, but you're creating stuff that's in here, like you said, locked away in that little box. You've pulled that, you know, you and Racy or Derek Watkins, and you can hear those affiliations in your playing, and that stuff is, as you said, we need to pass this on to everyone, especially yourself. You're a wealth of knowledge. I can't chat to you long enough, to be honest with you. So, but yeah, do you mind if I play a video? I'll let you choose which one you'd like to do. Would you want to play MacArthur Park or the Jazz Matters with Solihull?
Well, maybe somebody, if we've still got people that are there, send in a quick message now what they'd like to hear.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, in the comments, would you rather hear MacArthur Park from Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, or Mike playing Jazz Matters with the Solihull Services Hub? I'll let that. We'll go on and chat for a little bit and let you guys make a decision in the comments down there. We've got a couple of people come in. There's a question here from Peter Dowsett, and he says, "Any plans for another CD?"
Yes, that's kind of been put on a slight back burner, but yes, there are plans maybe to do another work with brass bands again. But my main want really with CDs is to do, or downloads, whatever you prefer these days. But I really want to do an orchestral album that's going to be kind of moody, and I've already got a couple of people who I've asked and are willing to guest. I won't say right at this point who they are, but guest on the album. And I've also got some arrangers lined up, including the wonderful Nan Schwartz from Los Angeles, who's she's the daughter of Willie Schwartz, of course, was one of the many multi-reed players with Billy May, but of course he's really famous for playing the clarinet lead with Glenn Miller's Civilian Band. And when you listen to Moonlight Serenade, it's Willie that's playing on there. Wow. So I became friends with Nan because back in 1988, I did a tour with the Glenn Miller UK band with some of the original players, and Willie came over. And he was brilliant. He was so much fun. He was just great. And when he played clarinet and the sax, that was it. That was that sound. It was just incredible. I wished I'd been a bit older. Maybe I'd appreciate it even more. But it was fantastic. And a few years back, I was doing a session, and this guy was on the podium, another composer, arranger called Conrad Pope. And there was a bit of a lull in the proceedings, and he said, I love coming to London because you guys are so exciting and so much fun. He said, it's not much like that in Los Angeles anymore, because he said, it's like, everybody's told to be quiet, and it's a bit like a morgue and all that kind of stuff. He said, but it's great here. He said, it wasn't like that in my father-in-law's day. And he played, because he was a saxophone player in Glenn Miller's band, or played clarinet, he said, in Glenn Miller's band. So it got to the break, and I just went up to Conrad, and I said, Conrad, you mentioned your father-in-law. It wasn't Willie Schwartz, was it? He said, yeah, sure it was. He said, come and meet my wife in the box. And so I went up to her, and I had on my phone, I had a picture of me with her dad in 1988. You could just about recognize me. But and she told me that he was, as he was going to come over to the UK to do this tour, he'd just been diagnosed with cancer, but he still came. He wanted to come, and yeah, it was wonderful. So we've become great friends because of that. And Nan's, kind of, she's probably can't remember now, but she is lined up to do some arranging on there. Wonderful arranging. You'll hear one of her arrangements with Natalie Cole on, I think, Unforgettable 2 album, and she got a Grammy for it. It's Here's That Rainy Day, and she arranged that for Natalie Cole. So anybody that wants to hear her writing, have a listen to that.
I'll definitely go have a look at that one. I've probably heard it before, but I'm definitely going to search it out now.
And it's got a wonderful trumpet solo on it by Warren Looning. And apparently they decided last minute to put a trumpet solo on there. So the track was already down, and they asked Warren to go in and do this solo. And he just did. That was the first take. What you hear on there is the first take, and it's beautiful. It's worth listening for his trumpet playing. Yeah. Go listen to it.
What I'll do is I'll try and find it if there's a link to it as well, and I'll attach it to this video so people can do that. We've had a couple of people come in with we've had 2 for MacArthur Park and 1 for Jazz Matters. So I'll leave it a little bit longer, and I'll ask another question for you guys, and just see. If in the end we might be play both. If not, what I'll do is I'll put links to them in this in the description of this video anyway. So Max Mills has dropped in. He says, "Hi Mike, I hope you're keeping well. All the upcoming projects sound brill."
Oh, that's nice. Hi, Max.
If anyone doesn't know Max, he's a brilliant drummer, and he's had a hell of a year. Sending you all the love, Max. Stephen's come on and said, "What do you like most about young guys coming up in London, such as Tom or Louis? And what do you look for in a young musician coming into the studio scene?"
Okay, first and foremost, I look for somebody that's really nice to sit next to as a person. And somebody that I get along with. I have to respect them, and they have to respect me. And that's the first point of call. The second point of call is the fact that they've got to do the job. They've got to make me sound good. I'm going back to Maurice Murphy again now, and Maurice always said, I mean, this is ridiculous, really, but he said he only sounded like he did in the LSO because of his second trumpet player. who was a guy called Malcolm Hall. And if any of you seen any clips with the LSO back in the sort of like heyday, and he's got a big beard. So if you see a trumpet player with a big beard, that's Malcolm. And he famously never ever, if it was tails or if it was dinner jacket, whatever, he never ever wore a bow tie in that orchestra. Never ever.
I never knew that.
Because his beard covered it up. So he would have had to have gone like that to show his bow tie off. So he never did. But Maurice famously said, I only sounded like I did because of Malcolm. So yeah, I just want guys that we're gonna work together as a team and sound good together. It's not about playing with elbows. It's about playing with a group hug, and that's what playing music is about. And it's about listening to the people around you and bouncing off them. So if I've got somebody like Louis Dowdswell or Tom Walsh sitting next to me, I'm gonna be bouncing off what talents they've got, and it's gonna make me go, hang on a minute, these guys are fantastic. I'm gonna have to do my job here and play as good as I can. So that's what I look for, really.
It's almost like they bring the best out in you. That's the kind of players you want. That sounds incredible. So I'm going to play MacArthur Park here because no one else is voting for Jazz Matters, or no one else is voting at the moment. We've got 16 people in here watching, and everyone's happy with anything we're doing by the sounds of it. So what I'll do is I'll play MacArthur Park because it's a hell of an arrangement. It's a great arrangement. Did Colin Skinner do this one?
No, it was done by, actually, we did it live 2 years ago, and it was done by a horn player who at the time was at the Conservatoire of Scotland, and I'll find out his name. I can't just off the top of my head. I think it does say on the YouTube clip. So whilst this is playing, I should do my homework because he deserves a massive pat on the back for this great arrangement, really. And I again, it was a time when this is only like a month ago or something when I recorded it, but I woke up in the middle of the night and I suddenly thought, you know, that bit near the end? Well, that clip that I've listened to loads of times of Derek playing, that's the way I should attack that, really. So I came downstairs and I put YouTube on and I watched James Last with Derek playing. I don't know whether you've seen that one where he's outside and
the white suit.
Yeah, and the wind is blowing in his hair, and of course he just plays it like nobody else can.
Had his glasses on. Yeah, it was.
I'm going to do that. It's a tribute to him as well, really.
To be fair, when I was listening to it, it really came out that I could definitely tell that's what you had in the back of your mind. It's a very fitting tribute. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is MacArthur Park with the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland.
Thanks, Ben.
I love that cheeky smile right at the end.
That was relief.
Yeah, but it's what it sounded. I mean, for some of our guys out there, especially the guys, working up, and people are happy when they it's like, oh, like, I get messages from guys that, I give tips to, and they're like, oh, I'm playing a lovely E or a nice E flat now, really fat, and stuff like that. Now what you do, so tell me what the process is that you're going from that G just to give it that, because it's not much, is it? It's not much of a change, but people in their head go, that's like a fourth.
The thing is that everybody does it, myself included sometimes, and that is that you'll naturally tense up more. Once you've got that G, all you've got to think is staying where you are and just giving that bit extra compression, whether it's from a tiny bit more gas that's against the resistance we've already got, or the compression that we've already got. Maybe a tiny bit of that and a tiny bit of compression, but keep that aperture open, because if the aperture's too tightly, if we're pressing the lips together, it's too tightly closed, it's just going to go to nothing.
Yeah. It'll just be nothing.
I mean, I don't know if I can do it now, but I haven't done anything today, as I told you. So
there it is.
Put in the air, just giving it that extra bit.
Yeah, and I mean, it's doing really something that you said in the first episode, and there's also something that has come up quite a lot, especially from Bobby Shue when we chatted to him. And he talked a lot about there's too much of this. People just think they need to play like harder in a way. They like so much air, and it's just not going to work. It's something for some of our younger guys, our younger listeners, I think, need to keep in the back of their mind.
There's a great book by a brilliant French trumpet player and educator called Pierre Thibault. Don't know whether you come across that.
No, I haven't.
And he has these, on the books, he has these arrows, like a forward arrow and a backward arrow. And he does like some slurring exercises that might be, on the air and tongue, or if you want to call them lip slurs, whatever you want to call them. But he actually puts a back arrow, so the arrow's pointing backwards when you go from a lower note to a higher note. Mm-hmm. In other words, don't try to blow loads of air. We've only got a little tiny hole like that. It's when you breathe in as well. It's about having a good breath, not an enormous breath. We're not playing a tuba. You listen to sit next to a tuba player. Amazing Owen Slade, what a tuba player is, and you hear him and he goes like this. We don't have to do that when we play the trumpet. We still need to take a good breath, but the reason for taking a good breath is to ensure that when we start, i.e. breathing in, when we start a note by breathing in, the throat stays open, and that's what we want to keep open in order to play in the upper register. So the compression happens within the oral cavity and the face and a bit of turning on the air that's already there. But actually, when we breathe in, to breathe out doesn't actually take any kind of effort.
Yeah.
To breathe out normally, like when we're talking like this, we're not thinking about pushing the air out, are we?
No.
So it's blow a balloon up and let the air go out the balloon. The air will just come out the balloon. It's got nowhere else to go.
It's a great way of doing it. Yeah.
Something.
A quick question I wanted to ask you as well. When you have it's something my teacher used to tell me all the time when back in Australia, and you have a great sense of it all the time when you play, is when you're playing quiet or just mid volume, you're not pushing it, but you have that intensity in the sound. You still have that sizzle that you have when you're, when you're going for it, when everyone's got that, where they open it up and it's just like, there it is, but you have that at the lower volumes as well. Is this something that you discovered at a
My darling wife just passed me a gin and tonic.
I'll send my love to Anne. She's looking after you still. Very good.
She is. Playing quietly does two things to people. They give up on the kind of sound they're making, and also they go into slow mode. Everything starts going in slow motion, so they drag.
Yeah.
But you've got to be. It's like being alert. It's like thinking, there's a string from the top of your head, and you're playing like that when you're playing quietly. You and Razy had a fantastic way of putting it. He used to say, roar softly.
Oh, wow.
Roar softly. And he used to get his students to play the first couple of pages of the Schlossberg book, which I'm sure a lot of people know, which is a lot of long notes, really. But he used to get them to play without the dynamics as marked in the book, but just completely quietly, but with purpose and intent. Wow. And that goes for any instrument. John Wilson, within the John Wilson Orchestra, the strings playing quietly, he would say, if you've got a semi-breathe and you're playing quietly, still it's alive. It doesn't, oh yeah, okay, what time is it? What time can we get to the pub? No, the note stays, because you have to keep that sound, especially in the trumpet section. If one of the trumpet players just decides to give up a bit in a quiet thing, well, then all the harmony's gone, the chord's gone. So again, the first trumpet might stick out or whatever. It just doesn't sound right. So always look after quiet notes. They're just as important. And, listen to the brilliance of people like Maurice Murphy when he was playing quietly. Listen to somebody like Phil Cobb playing quietly. It's unbelievable. It's just, there's still so much character in it.
Massively. Yeah. It drags you in. That's to me, that's the hardest stuff. Everyone's got a powerful, not everyone, but most people have that powerful sound. It's that quiet intensity that really makes you go, wow. To me anyway, makes me want to stand up and go, yes. But yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But obviously your equipment, something we didn't touch on on our last meeting, your equipment is a massive thing. You've got your own range of mouthpieces and you've got your own range of trumpet. Sorry for our non-trumpet players out there that aren't listening, but we're going to geek out a little bit and just hear about the process behind it and what you love about it. If you can just tell us a bit about Mike.
So going back to, I mentioned earlier about the TV series that I did with Derek. In those days, I was playing a Benge, not a Claude Gordon Benge. It was a Benge 3X MLP. And the reason I played one of those trumpets was because another one of my trumpet playing heroes in the UK, was and is Tony Fisher.
Oh.
And Tony always played a Benge 3 MLP. And I started to work with him, and I really liked the sound and his ability to project sound, what we were just talking about, really, with resonance. Tony just had that. You could actually sit next to Tony, and you didn't think he was actually playing that loud, but out the front, it was enormous. So I learned from this, and I thought, the only way I'm going to be able to do this is what you do, isn't it? The only way I'm going to be able to do this is by getting a Benge trumpet. Now, at that time, I played a Bach 37 medium large trumpet. Great trumpet. I sold it to a student, and maybe I shouldn't have done. But anyway, you should never sell instruments, really. But I sold it, and I played on this bench for a number of years, and it was a great trumpet, silver plated, and I love the sound of it and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I was working on this TV show with Derek, and Derek said, "Well, you want to have a go on one of my trumpets? I've got a spare one in the bag, you know." So he picked it up and he gave it to me, and I tried it, and of course it worked like a dream next to Derek. And he said, "You know, you want to get up and see Richard Smith and go to his house and spend an afternoon with him. Tell him I sent you." So a few days later, sure enough, I went up there, and I came away with my first Smith Watkins trumpet, which was an R25. Anybody that's really geeky, 464 bore, and I came out with a few lead pipes, a 10 and a 12, and I wanted to be. At that point, I wanted to be like I wanted to sound like Derek Watkins as well.
Who doesn't?
Tony Fisher. So I played on this trumpet, and at the time I was doing a show in the West End called Fame, and I played. There was only one trumpet in there, and there was a guy on trombone, Andy Crompton. Look, great guy. We had so much fun together doing that show. And he said, "Get back on your bench. That doesn't sound as good, that." And I said, "Well, no, Andy, just you need to grow into these things. Let's give it a couple of weeks." So we did, and eventually he said, "That trumpet sounds fantastic." So that was it. I started playing. That was 1994/5. So I started playing on Smith Watkins, and after a while, Derek and Richard got in touch and said that they would do some experiments, and would I be willing to sort of help them and do something with them. And as usual, even though I thought this is a bit out of my depth, I'm not qualified to do this kind of thing, I went, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." And so went up to Richard. By this time, Richard had moved to York, where he is now, and I went up there, and we did some experiments on trumpets. And I remember we were doing one thing, which was there was a camera in the tuning slide, and we were playing any notes above a high G. So Derek says, "I've had enough now. You do some." It was a bit like that. It was fantastic. But anyway, at that point, Derek said, "Okay, I think that's enough now. We should go to the pub, Richard. Take us to the pub." So great fun. And then we go up on the train, Derek and I, and come back. So I got into the sort of how these things work a bit more. I got a bit more knowledge. And at that point, I said to Richard, "Have you thought of doing mouthpieces? Because what you could do is you could have a Derek Watkins mouthpiece, and loads of people would just buy them. They'd sell like hotcakes." So we did actually start to get a mouthpiece going, but eventually Derek says, "Oh, I'm not bothered about that. You do something. You do a mouthpiece." And at that point, Derek sadly got ill, and so that side of it went. But so I developed my own set of mouthpieces, and this is one here. There's 3 different mouthpieces: a studio, which is a kind of everyday mouthpiece. There's a lead mouthpiece, and there's a classical mouthpiece as well. And I used to play on the boosters, which
you quite famously played on those Dennis Wick boosters.
But what people don't know is that inside those boosters, I used to stuff a load of blue tack, like plastic inside. And the reason for that was because I believed that it really had to fit really well in order for it to have any change in the kind of way that it felt and it sounded. Wow. So I said to Richard, "I've got this idea. We could have these boosters, instead of them sliding on, let's have a thread put on the mouthpiece." So we designed this. And before they came out, we discovered that, of course, Shaggle had done a James Morrison mouthpiece, which has water inside it.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know.
And that had the screw thread on it. So we weren't the first to do that. But the boosters are 3 different weights. And I eventually settled on all my mouthpieces with the small weight, which for me, maybe it's in my head. Who knows? But I've done blindfold tests with other people, and I can tell when somebody's using a booster. These mouthpieces work well without them, but I always have a booster on. So yeah, I developed those, and I've played on those ever since. I'm very happy with them.
You sound great. So yeah,
I think if I can't do it on these mouthpieces, which I designed for myself, maybe there's people out there that know more about mouthpieces than me. But okay, the sound's okay, and I can do what I need to do, and I'm not going to blame it on that. If I can't do it, then it's me.
Yeah. I mean, for some of our listeners out there, if they're sitting there going, oh, I wonder what they compare to what I play, do you have a relative size, like rim
Yeah,
wise and stuff?
the classical one is about like a sort of 1 1/4 C across Bach mouthpiece. The studio mouthpiece is about like a Bach 3C across, slightly shallower, with a medium kind of back bore size.
Mm-hmm.
I used to play on Warburton mouthpieces, and I used to have a KT Star back
Oh,
bore.
yeah.
So it was kind of slightly modelled on that, slightly more open than the KT Star back bore. And then for the lead mouthpiece, the diameter is like a Bach 5, and the same depth as the studio mouthpiece. So an S cup, really, but not really shallow. And the back bore on the lead mouthpiece. I'm sorry if this is boring talking about back bores.
Hey,
But,
we've got 2 extra people in here now since before
oh,
we
yeah.
just started talking about it. So, hey.
The back bore is enormous on that mouthpiece. So it's like the equivalent of a 12-star Warburton, which is, I think, the biggest back bore that they do.
Yeah, it is.
And the reason for that was that when I'm playing high, I wanted something that would allow the air to get through without encouraging my throat to close up when the aperture maybe was slightly more compressed.
Mm-hmm.
If you get what I'm saying. So when the compression happens there's still somewhere for the air to go rather than that kind of thing going on.
Very much so. I mean, and I mean, there's Prozone Stockholm and Phil Parker Stockholm, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and we've done really well with them. Obviously, there's some amazing mouthpieces out there. GR have got all their range, and they're probably the leading range that people go to at the moment. But I've been really happy with the way these have sold. And
what would be your advice for that one person that is like, something's not quite right, you know? And obviously sometimes it is the mouthpiece, sometimes it's the trumpet, you know, or sometimes it's us. Yes. But if they do want to change a mouthpiece, what would you be looking for? What were you looking for when you got that, when you went to, you know, change a mouthpiece?
I think ultimately it's the feel. And by the feel, I don't just mean the feel of it on your face, right? You know, where it sits on your face, but also the feel of how much resistance you get and how you're playing, the way that you play can cope with that resistance. Some people can play a trumpet with tremendous, or a mouthpiece with tremendous resistance in it, really successfully and be able to play high. And you know, small trumpet, small mouthpiece doesn't necessarily mean small sound. What is a small sound? Nobody knows, you know. It's just sound. And I think that's the point of call. Work out if you can push against that resistance in the most efficient way to create the sound and the notes that you want on that mouthpiece. And also, if you're trying mouthpieces out, go with your initial response, because after a while, your old head will take over and go, well, it doesn't feel like that one that I played on, or that. So you start doing that kind of thing. If it sounds and feels good first, and then sounds good second, it's only going to get better. But go with the feel first. That's my advice.
And they always say there can be a honeymoon period where, you know, after a week you sort of start, it does not working as well, and then you start going, oh, I've got to go back, but stick with it, sort of thing.
Stick with it. Go through the other side. You know, give it a few months before you think, actually, no, that isn't right. Some people might say, no, that's not the right approach, but that's my approach, and it certainly was with designing them as well. And then, of course, the next most important thing, really, once you've got your mouthpiece, I wouldn't go and buy a new trumpet and buy a new mouthpiece at the same time.
No.
I'm
just going to shrink me down a little bit here so we can see the full trumpet.
Okay, yeah.
There we go.
So the lead pipe here, obviously, it's like a regular Smith Watkins. So they are kind of removable and changeable, shall we say? Mm-hmm. And this is the one that comes with my model trumpet. So this is the ML, which is about a kind of 13/14. So it's a bit bigger than the 12, which I played on for 20 years or something. And the bell, the reason for that is that the bell and the bore size of this trumpet are smaller than I used to play on. So I'm getting older. I decided to go for more resistance. Maybe I'm a bit more knowledgeable. I decided to go for more resistance. So I wanted. Derek always said to me, he said, when we designed those trumpets, we went for balance. And in those days, Derek played a Giardinelli 10S. So he had a trumpet which was a Q bell, which was the biggest bell that Smith Watkins did. And he said, you've got to have the balance because I've got a small end here, so you've got to have a big end here. And, it's actually spot on. That is really spot on. You've got to have a balance in the trumpet. And the most important parts, I think, are the lead pipe and the bell. Okay, the valves have to be good. They have to work. They have to be efficient. They have to be lined up properly. So when you press one down, it lines up with the ports on the slides. But really, the trumpet is the lead pipe and the bell. So that's where we always go, this is a free blowing trumpet. Well, why is it? Is it because the lead pipe's open or the bell's open? And it depends where you like to feel that resistance. And in the words of Bobby Shue, resistance is our friend. I always kind of demonstrate by getting a cushion and pushing my finger against it. How hard do you have to push that finger against the cushion to make the cushion dimple? Well, the answer is not very much. And it's working out how hard you have to push or how much you have to push against the resistance of the horn in order for your lips to respond in the right way to produce the wave.
That's great. That's great advice.
That's reflected, in the instrument. So this is the Mike Lovatt Smith Watkins trumpet, available from Prozone. I think you said the mouthpieces were, and also I think Phil Parker's have them as well. They're available in America from, I think, DF Music, and it was made for me, so I like it. I'm bound to like it. If there's other people out there, and I know there are, that have bought them and really like them, that's it.
I've got a confession to make, Mike. I had to put your trumpet down because I'm like, I can't afford one right now. To be fair, they're fantastic trumpets, and if I have it my way down the line, I will definitely own one, because they are incredible instruments. So I encourage everyone out there that has a chance to go and do it. And if not, I'm sure if you're in a different country listening to this, maybe you can send Mike a message and he might be able to find out where they're stocking it in your country for you to go try it. Cool. So we are getting to the end because again we've nearly gone for 2 hours here, and I'm keeping you all night. So I always get on. No, not at all. We're gaining people here, so it's great. Thanks so much for staying with us, guys. So I do a segment, and it's called What's on Your Stand? Is there anything that you're playing or practicing right now that is preparing for something?
Okay. No, not necessarily preparing for something. There's a few things on my stand, not necessarily musical, but inspiration to me.
Okay.
The first one is this.
That's amazing.
That's my mum and dad. But musically on here, I've got a couple of things actually. There's something that I recorded only a couple of days ago for a young lad who lives in our village, who's crazy about a piece called Poppy Dance, which I happen to play on my CD, which of course is 56 Degrees North, available on my website. Managed to get that in. And it's a lovely little tune which a friend of mine, Andy Smith, wrote. It was actually written for Remembrance Day service, which is why it's called Poppy Dance.
That's amazing.
He asked me if I would, this little lad who's mad on the trumpet and has got my CD and he loves it on there. We've done a special recording for him, and Anne played violin on it as well. So there's a bit of that there. That's on there still from the other day. This is a book which I do quite a bit of work from, and I think it's a fantastic book, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that have seen it. It's Scott Belk, the progressive.
Oh, that's incredible! Yeah,
and I love Scott Belk's sense of humour. His harmonic knowledge is amazing, and anybody that's looking for something which is really good for working on flexibility, this is a great book to work from. There's he titles them with humorous names like the Arban Hammer is one of them, and there's also this one I really like, which is called I Slur in Your General Direction. That's on my stand. Now here, this is also on my stand.
A secret project.
Yes, this is something which eventually will be out there. And
Amazing. And
that's
just a
all I
quick
can
reminder
say.
to our listeners as well, make sure you head to Mike's social media, YouTube, everything like that, because as he said, there's always secret things going on. And if you don't know his incredible relationship with Colin Skinner and the arrangements that he's done for him as well, they are one of a kind. Everything Colin Skinner does is magical. And I literally can't wait for the stuff I'm guessing, probably still writing for you right now. And
Yeah,
while
it's
you've already done the plug, I did have it here somewhere. Let me just bring it up for our people. There it is right there.
thank you.
Mike 56 Degrees North. You need to get it. It's with the wonderful Foden's band. And yeah, it's an incredible CD. How do people find this, Mike? Is it on iTunes?
It's on iTunes. It's on Amazon Music as well, as if you want to download. If you want a hard copy, a CD, go old fashioned. There is that lovely booklet, which that's what you're actually showing now, which is great, which has got all the process of how we came about to record an album with a brass band. And if you're into buy it on the website, if you want a proper CD, and if you send me an email as well to info@mikelovatt.co.uk, I'll make sure there's a little signature in there. I'll sign it personally to you because I send them out from home. So
that's amazing, and that personal touch, you can also hear that in your playing as well on the CD because there's
that's nice of you to say.
There's stunning playing on that. So I definitely recommend everyone to go and get a CD. Please do, and put it on and just let it run. There's a little button that's got a circle, a bunch of arrows. Just hit that one. It's called repeat, and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So Mike, just before we finish, there's something that I've started doing on my streams, which I didn't do when I first interviewed way back 6 months ago. So I have a quick couple of questions before we end, and I would like to quick fire them at you, which is what would be 3 CDs that you think our listeners should definitely go and listen to?
Clifford Brown with strings.
Mm-hmm.
The Ella Fitzgerald Gershwin songbook, and 4 Last Songs, Jesse Norman.
Beautiful.
Richard Strauss.
They're incredible. The second one is there a funny story of something great or something just bad or interesting that happened on a gig that you would like to share?
Well, I actually shared this on another stream, but I'm going to share it again because it's quite good. But I think it's quite good. I was lucky enough to do the remake of Jesus Christ Superstar remake. That's the wrong word, but the time it was brought back into the West End, which was in the mid '90s, and it was a great fun to be on that show. We had so many laughs, and there were some amazing players. John Barty was in the trumpets, lead trumpet, and Pat White, and Gordon Campbell, and Pete Beecham, and Dave Stewart, and the trombones. It was a great brass section. The rhythm section was super. There was Ralph Salmons was on drums, and we had so much fun. And when the show opened, it was just after that theatre had been refurbished, which is where the Lion King is on, well, be on again. And by the side of that theatre, they opened a restaurant at the same time. It was one of these seafood restaurants, Wheeler's. And in this restaurant, we went between shows. It's like, yes, go to Wheeler's. And it's like we're ordering everything, like we order everything, don't we? And somebody ordered like the lobster platter. There was so much food, and it's like 7:25, and we're going like, come on, we've got to get out of here. Let's pay the bill, Let's take a doggy bag. Get the lobster in the doggy bag. So the lobster goes into the doggy bag, and in we go to the. Anyway, somebody thought it would be a fantastic thing with this lobster to open up the bass drum and put the lobster inside the bass drum, and so that's what happened. And after a few days, you can imagine. I mean, almost immediately the smell was unbelievable. So anyway, of course, eventually it was, where's that smell coming from? And they opened up the bass drum, and there was maggots and
oh man,
there are so many stories from that show. It was just such a great time, and I call it my sabbatical period because I was between wives at that time. So I went ballistic. I had a great time.
But in the end, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that people don't realize in shows. As I said, bells and whistles, you know, like you guys are having a great time down there and you're still playing the arse out of the shows as well. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think that's how you do it every night after night, really.
Yeah.
And on that show, we weren't actually in a pit. They built all these rocks at the back of the stage, and we were like behind the rocks. So we weren't actually in view. And so the things that we got up to, I mean, another thing we used to do was that there was a stairs that went down to the fire doors at the back. And luckily there was an alarm on these doors. But we go out onto the street, you go and have a cigarette or whatever. And we got into this thing where we'd grab people off the street and say, come on, have a look what's going on in here. And we'd pull them into this area where we played. And it was so loud in there, you know, there was a roof on it and everything. And we'd play like, people's faces, they couldn't believe it, you know. And then it got to the stage where we were trying to, the most unusual person you could find, you know, and somebody in the brass section, who should remain nameless, managed to grab a famous personality from the street and brought her into the pit, into where we were playing, and she promptly lifted her shirt up and showed us everything she got.
Brilliant, absolutely.
And
brilliant.
we were still going.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thanks for sharing those stories. That's amazing. And just finally, if you could go back and give yourself one advice, what would that be?
I suppose just try a bit harder and do it even better.
Yeah. It's good advice. I think one of the best things you've said in this stream is just go for it. Stop. Yeah. Believe in yourself and go for it. It's something that I think a lot of musicians that are going through life at the moment, especially with this lockdown and stuff, you know, a bit of self-doubt comes into their playing, their thinking, and it does. People don't think about it. That has a massive effect on your playing. Self-doubt.
It does, and I think that really does come from the fact that, okay, I was lucky to find a way out of it, but from having that terrible thing happen to my chops and to what was going to be I thought was going to be my future, and it was maybe the end of that, it actually made me try harder, but it also made me realize that when I eventually got further and everything was starting to work better, that actually anybody can do it, but it's just you have to keep trying, and maybe one day you'll get that eureka moment where something that you do that you maybe have learned from somebody else or you've been guided another way, all of a sudden all those things that need to come together and it goes bang like that, and you just go, wow, that's it. And I remember having a moment a bit like that, and I was sitting on the edge of this bed that this place I used to rent in the East End of London, and I used to practice in front of this mirror, like thinking, okay, yeah. And I was sitting on and it happened, and I literally threw myself back on the bed. Luckily, I held onto my trumpet, and I kicked my legs in the air like that, and I just laughed my head off. That was my eureka moment. So anybody that's out there that struggles with stuff, just keep on trying different things that might unlock your way of doing it.
That's
incredible. Take advice from people. Take advice from people that might have a bit more experience. They might be able to guide you the right way.
It's incredible advice. One of the best advices that I picked up of a previous stream that you did. I think that to our viewers out there, if you don't know, every now and then Mike does these kind of streams as well with a lovely friend of his called Deanne. And they are great to watch. They're very entertaining. Great stories on that. But one of the things you said on that stream was incredible, and something I took away with me, which is sometimes when something works, you've been trying to do something, it works, go make yourself a cup of tea, then come back, do it again, and just realize what you're doing, like why it worked. And that is a massive one for me. It really has.
Let it soak into your being.
Yeah, that was great advice. See, people, everyone picks stuff up, and I'm always picking stuff up, especially from Mike. So, Mike, I can't thank you enough for joining me again. It's 6-month anniversary.
It's great. Can I just say one other thing? And that is, if there is anybody out there that's interested in in
Oh,
having
of
any
course.
time. My teaching, I've been doing Zoom teaching not just for the past 12 months. I've done Zoom teaching for years. The details are on my website, but if you want to send me an email, info@mikelovatt.co.uk, and I'll reply to you. And if you're interested in a consultation lesson or a series of lessons, we can get that together and organize it. I still have quite a bit of time going at the moment.
And honestly, people, get these, do that and get lessons off Mike, and do it now while Mike has the time, because when things start opening, that time is going to be taken up very quickly, and because Mike is Mike and he's very much in demand. So please get into him. The website is also in the description of this video. So just click that link and go straight to it and book your lesson. I need to do it. I just need to stop paying for MOTs on my motorbike, and then I have some spare cash to do it. So yeah, I will be hitting you up, Mike. And
You're welcome,
and a massive thank you again for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and your advice, as always, is inspirational. So
thanks ever so much, Ben. It's great to be here, and thanks for everybody for watching.
Yes, exactly. Thanks everyone for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it. Tell your friends, let everyone know, because if you know this is the reason I'm doing it, to be able to chat to sensational people like Mike Lovatt. So thanks very much, everyone, and you stay safe in the practice room.
Yes.